Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do? Hey, Barry Manning here. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Garn Report, and back from Abu Dhabi, we have Chris Forsberg, NBC Sports Boston. Great to see you, Chris. Great to talk to you here. Great to have a season again. We're back at it.
Finally, even those games, it was weird. It's just like, I don't know, maybe I'll feel differently after Saturday's game. It'll feel like real basketball again. But saw 2 games out there, got this thing going. Let's 98 more in this season if they do it again. So let's keep it rolling.
So they played the Stars a decent amount out there, more than I expected. Actually, we saw a good quarter or so from them in these games. Al Horford sat out, and then we got to see quite a bit of the second unit right through the fourth quarter, and some of the guys deeper on the roster out there. If you had to point to one thing that stood out to you most from those games, what would you say surprised you, or just caught your attention, or you think was important?
Yeah, I think I point to the reserves. In game 1, they sort of needed to that unit to take up the energy a little bit. Starters looked a little rusty out of the gates, and Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser come in and do what they've been doing for really last season and before that, and just made shots, changed the energy. And I thought they were good throughout this trip. And for me, that's encouraging because I think we know what they have in their top group. It's a luxury that, on nights that Al isn't available, you can maybe throw Luke into that mix, or whoever you want your 5 to be. But you're going to get from that group. And more often than not, they're going to be more talented than the other starting 5. But the depth is what sort of differentiates. And it's something I felt a lot last year. And then you go back to it with, Denver has depth issues, right? They couldn't get anything from their bench, and you got the Celtics just thriving in those minutes. So it's encouraging that with the high hopes for this year that the Celtics can maintain that high level. And I think you're only going to see more of Peyton, more of Sam, whether it's resting guys, whether it's just need them to be a little bit more impactful, which sounds crazy when they were the 2 top net rating guys for the season. But if you get that sort of production from your bench, this is going to be another successful year. So I can't wait, just, more emboldened that this team is ready for whatever is ahead.
Yeah, I thought the Luke thing was big. They throw him out there against Jokic. He's the starter. Looks super connected with the starting unit for Boston, which he's probably going to have to do early this season in spots where Al's not available. They use him quite a bit in the flow of the offense. I thought he looked good passing, looks a little stronger. I think he's actually ready to take a step here. And he was pretty good last year, too, being the chief Luke supporter that I am here.
And on a minimum contract. Can we continue to say how ridiculous it is that this team was able to bring back both Luke and Tillman on minimum deals, and both could be part of that top 8, top 9, depending on how you count it based on healthy bodies. But it's ridiculous that everybody just kind of took less money to keep this thing together.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, I think it was Austin Ainge said during the summer league period there that some guys did take less than was available out there to stay. I'm sure that, it was Luke, Xavier kind of guys there who ended up staying on minimums. The Tillman thing too surprised me. He's out there hitting threes, looking sprier than he was a year ago, got the surgery, and when he actually didn't come in for that second stint in the second game and Keita came in instead, I was like, oh, is the knee acting up again? And then he came back and looked good again. And again, you're going against Jokic. So this is about as good a test as you can get for those guys. And that's probably the biggest question for the team coming into the year, is how they sustain without Porzingis through December or so.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had high expectations for Tillman coming off. You always hear people say it, right? Jumping on midstream is hard. Even Derek, Derek was really good when he joined on board, but he was maybe never quite comfortable. And I wonder if Tillman felt the same thing, had big moments, the 3 in Dallas, he had key impacts, but it's just, I think there's another level for him to go to. And so if you are going to tread cautiously with Al, if you're going to take as much time as possible with Porzingis, then it's a real luxury to have guys like Luke and Tillman who can just like really hold the fort. And I just do think like they're going to lean into Tillman in spots where they can highlight that versatility. It's such a luxury to have someone you're not afraid to throw on Luka or Jokic or whatever, and feel like he can not be overwhelmed. And so, I will be curious how much they can play him against pure fives overall. But there's ways to mix and match these puzzle pieces and get the most out of them.
Want to go to Tatum? New shot, new mechanics. We got to see it.
Whoa. All right, we gotta bury the storyline. Like, it might be slightly tweaked. It's like,
So you don't see a big difference?
I don't like. I sat there like Zapruder style watching this thing, and I'm like, I get it. It does. If you want to tell me it's a little smoother,
It's quicker.
I don't know if
it's a little quicker.
Because like I don't know. Maybe I'm just overreacting to like watching warmups. I think the fact of the matter is he shot 38% last year. Like, he's pretty good, and he's gonna still be pretty good. I get the idea that if he gets up to 40%, like, good luck league, and that's clear that's like a priority because he struggled with that shot in the playoffs and then with Team USA. But I don't know. I don't think it was like, I don't think it was. I'll equate it to like a golfer. Like, a golfer goes through a couple bad weeks. Like they lose. Like, I know I lose it pretty often. Like, the best golfers just sort of tighten up the mechanics and off they go. I don't think there was like they didn't sit down with a blueprint and be like, all right, we're going to rebuild this. And it was like, all right, dude, just like, let's be a little bit smoother with it. Let's get back to what works. And that's why skills trainers are like relatively, even though I'm the first to diminish the skills trainers and the summer hype videos and all that come out, it is sometimes good for them to be like swing coaches and just get you back into get the mechanics right and allow you to thrive.
Yeah, good to see him shooting well anyway here to start and getting a decent number of attempts in these games. I still, I'm torn a little bit too there, because I felt like coming out of the playoffs, part of the issue was the difficulty of the shots, because I think he was something like 14% on contested threes and 40 on open threes. So he was hitting the open ones still. And I think it comes down to shot quality or shot selection in particular with his threes at the time. He takes tough ones. He takes a lot of tough shots in general. So that's always going to weigh into his, shooting percentages. And I think he came away from these games like 40 from the field. So it wasn't a stellar shooting from the field by any means here, but the threes fell. Makes you feel better, because it was a little bit of an extended drought. I know a lot of people say, you just go through lows there, but I was interested in the fact that he actually went back, tweaked some things. What do you talk about? Hand placement, shoulders, legs, all kinds of different things that he took a look at there after the playoffs. So it's one of the things I'm watching going into the year for sure.
For sure.
37, I think, is probably what you expect from him coming off last year. If it dips below that hurts, because his pull-up threes are a big part of what their offense does.
100%. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to focus on it. I just think it's funny to me that a guy who shot 38% and like we're obsessing about the mechanics, but certainly the playoffs and Team USA and all that stuff, it's recency bias. And so I kept telling people, if he struggles, if he's a month or two into the season and that shot's still not there, yeah, we can freak out about it. But my suspicion is just like you said. I'd almost rather he focus on shot quality. I'd like to see him get back in the post more. Like, it felt like he was going in the post a lot at the start of last season. We kept talking about all that work with Sam Cassell, and then he got away from it again. And so I just think those are small ways to tweak his efficiency. I will say that being around the team this week is like a lot of talk about efficiency. Peyton Pritchard wants to be more efficient, and like, he had crazy net rating. Like, they all just want to take more good shots and just improve that way, because then the offense goes up another level when they were already historic last year.
So what was the trip like in general? So when I was looking into it, I was seeing, did you travel with the team? Did you travel on your own?
Yeah. So, it's funny. It's my first time I've ever traveled with the team, and mostly just because logistically it made the most sense. And I was blown away, because I don't know what my perception was from afar. I think, I'm not a big international traveler, so I didn't know quite what to expect. But I had a lot of people just said, like, you're never going to have this opportunity again. Kind of embrace it. And I was blown away. Like, this just from the perspective of what they're building in Abu Dhabi and like what they want to attract. Like, we talked to the chairman of tourism a lot, and he's actually got some Northeastern roots. So me and him were there at the same time, had no idea He's a little bit more successful than I am right now. So, good for him. But it's like they want the NBA as part of like their focal point of what they're bringing there. They've got like UFC going there. But beyond that, like just it's a really beautiful area. And like, Jaylen Brown talked a lot about like why he's drawn to it. The water is ridiculously blue. The people are very nice. It's super clean. Like it's just whatever I had in mind was kind of blown away by how it was. And it was cool. Like I'll remember the basketball and certainly like all that part of it, but going to the Grand Mosque with the team, just like how ridiculously beautiful and pristine that area is, seeing the Louvre from the outside, this like spectacle right on the sort of the corner of Saadiyat Island, the food, the views. And I think the number one thing I'll take away is just like, I don't think you can go on a trip like this and not take something out of it from a team perspective. It's not 2007-08 when they went to overseas and Rome and had to come together because that was their first sort of time they were thrown in. This team already has great chemistry and like, look, they've been together for the better part of the year, with no real breaks. So they didn't need it, but like when you're forced to navigate a different country and have those experiences, like now I go back to, I keep using the word emboldened. Like I thought this team was going to be really good. I think there's potential for like 08, 09 Celtics where you just come out of the gate and wreck everything in your path, because while the Knicks are still figuring it out, while Philly's still figuring it out, these Celtics are clearly, like even in that second game, you saw a little bit of like tapping into what they can do. And now you add this experience. And so once they rest and kind of get out of this jet lag phase, I just think they could have a real potential to hit the ground running.
What was the best food you had there?
Ooh, so we actually got an early recommendation was to go to a place, I think it was called Beirut Dessert or Beirut something. It was Lebanese food, and it was outstanding. And I think that was the best part, is just like, we had a breakfast buffet every morning that had local food, Arabic coffee. And you get to just try a million different things. I actually regretted, the only thing I look back, I was like, I wish I had written down more about like what I liked. And I like spicy food, and there were some really good dishes over there. There was a Mediterranean place in our hotel, sushi place. So yeah, I was spoiled by it, and I'm still adjusting to that. But I will say I was home for about, I got home just in time to walk my daughter to the bus stop yesterday. And then I told my wife, I'm like, one, I need to move because I've been on a plane for like 15 straight hours or a bus. And so I walked to my local Dunkin' Donuts, and I hadn't had an iced coffee in 8 days. And there were Dunkins over there, and I'd planned to go to it. I never got to one. It's all a little bit different customs. So I was quite happy to get back to a Dunkin's.
Yeah, and you mentioned the bonding. Oh, you got to golf a little too. Was that?
I did. Yeah, I'm probably burying the lead. So for me, like I'm a golf fanatic, and literally the last Saturday, so the day before we were leaving, we had like a one little 3-hour break, and I said, I'm going to regret it if I don't do it. And so we had a course that kind of ran along the hotel we were at, and called up and made a reservation, get out there got paired with a nice guy who was like essentially from London and was living in Dubai. And he was a great tour guide and gave me some insight. Steve Harvey drove past us in a golf cart at one point. And
that's who I would have loved to have met out there. When I saw him, I was like, oh, I wish I got to meet Steve Harvey.
He's in all like a lot of the tourism videos, so he must have some connection to the region. But he pulled up, he was in it was like a pimped out purple golf cart. And I said, yeah, he pulled up as if he was going to ask to join, because my guy bailed for the back nine. And so I thought he was going to ask to link up, and no, he was just accelerating through the log jam to go play. I would have liked to have, to get some Family Feud talk in there before he took off.
We got some GM survey results today as well. Want to get to those, but first, quick shout out to our sponsor here, Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And it's been a tough year for football injuries. Guys go down your team. You do the full season thing, and your team's ruined 3 weeks in. You're like, oh, but with daily fantasy, you get a new team each week if you want it. And that's the best part here. They also have injury insurance. So if your guys go down in the first half, they stay in play here. So use the code CLNS, get $50 instantly when you play $5 over at Prize Picks. Download the app today. Again, go to Prize Picks and use code CLNS for $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, 2 or more guys, pick more or less on their projections, and it's that easy. Prize Picks, run your game. So I guess we'll rattle through these, Chris. Whether you feel like too high, too low on these guys, or just right for their GM survey standings here. So we'll start with Tatum, of course. And for him, tied third in MVP. I felt like I expected that, although Shea coming in first there, a little surprised to me. Tatum actually tied with Jokic, as well as Embiid in the GM survey here. Best small forward, which is where he stood going into last year, and tied third in most versatile. So on these, too high, too low, just right for Tatum.
Did Steve Kerr see these results? Did like is he aware like that he where Tatum ranked among small forwards and such? And I was actually a little surprised he got best small forward. Again, I just always assume that there'll be more haters than praise in these things for the Celtics players, and especially after you win a title, sometimes there's a little bit of jealousy that runs into it. So I would have thought he would have been a little bit lower on the small forward list, but look at him at the top. And then the MVP thing actually surprised me a little bit too. I just would have thought that there would have been more, the people sliding Anthony Edwards over him, or like whatever the case may be, when you start thinking about younger players. And so I like that he got a little bit of respect here. I guess the Celtics will be frustrated that there's not more ability to use it as motivation.
Yeah, I actually do think it spoke pretty well to him, especially when you think he's in like the Durant, Wembanyama category in terms of versatility. I think that speaks pretty well to him. Giannis took that one, LeBron second. Jaylen, though, I think probably the biggest winner from last year when you look at where he stood. He actually got an MVP. This is Joe. We'll get to him. Jaylen actually got an MVP vote, or MVP votes here, honorable mention. So pretty good for Jaylen, especially when you compare it to where he was a year ago. Too high in the MVP category. Honorable mention among shooting guards as well, behind Edwards, Booker, Shea, Curry, and Doncic, as well as fifth best small forward if you're putting him in that category, behind Tatum, Doncic, Durant, LeBron. Jaylen coming in at fifth there. So among these, too high, just right, too low.
As usual, not enough respect for JB and what he accomplished last year. League is just still slow to recognize. I even watching him in Abu Dhabi, I'm like, man, he was really, really good at the paint. And it feels like he's going up again. And he's got, I don't know how he added more muscle in like the 2 weeks that we didn't see him this summer, but even when he sat down for media day with us, I was like, oh my God. He said he's got muscles in places he didn't know he could get muscles. So those underwater workouts are working. Clearly the voters still have their head underwater. And I expect like Jaylen to just really reaffirm that he's just on a different echelon now, like especially with the two-way impact. And eventually, again, maybe I don't know, maybe people will never recognize, maybe they'll just chalk it up to the Celtics overall collection of talent. But I do think one of the biggest reasons they were so successful last year, and why if they want to keep it going this year, just hinges on Jaylen. And early returns are really favorable for what he can do this season.
Yeah, interesting to see a couple different names in there too. I just noticed Derek White among the best shooting guard vote getters too here. So he's in the mix as well. Feel like those are just right in terms of his rankings at his position. MVP probably a little
ambitious, but
ambitious for him. Yeah.
You never know. So, like I said, if he keeps every year he goes up a level, like can we put it this way? If you had said this 3 years ago, but people would have been like, that's preposterous. And now it's just like, it's not ridiculous to think that he could be an all NBA and in that MVP conversation.
All right, on to Drew, who did quite well here as well. Best perimeter defender in the NBA coming off his first year with the Celtics. You also consider best defensive player in the league, tied for second with Rudy Bam, behind Wembanyama, who did amazing in the defensive player voting here going into year two. You also get tied for fifth most versatile defender behind Giannis, OG, Victor, and Bam, alongside Isaac and Herb Jones, as well as Jaden McDaniels. And an honorable mention for Drew, among which active player will be the best head coach someday. I don't know if I see Drew coaching.
Yeah, not one I suspect, but The one that jumps out is the versatile the defender thing. Are there other, point guards and shooting guards, or small guard, I always call small guard defending centers, like him and Marcus are pretty good at that. And I get the idea that it's nice when you have a 6'7" wing who can do a little bit of everything. But Drew was out there guarding Randall most of last year, taking turns on bigs, and so his versatility is probably a little undersold in that tied for fifth.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other ones fit. Best perimeter defender. We saw that last year. But you're right. He sort of transitioned more to guarding big guys last year, especially early on. So I'm interested to see where they align him. He guarded Jokic a little bit in those preseason games. So inside and out, you get productivity from him. But I feel like in this portion of his career, he's moving more toward guarding some of the bigger guys and using his strength. Joe, though, I do feel like is the one who came in a little underrated here in this survey. And Spoelstra is going to get the love more often than not. But no votes for best coach. Second, best offense. Fourth, best defense. I feel like that one's pretty fitting behind some of the more defensive guys. Probably could have had him ahead of Thibodeau. I think the Celtics were probably better defensively than the Knicks were a year ago. And tied for third, best people manager behind Spoelstra and Kerr, I believe. So Mazzulla, I feel like, especially when you look at the coach of the year voting too among the media members, a little slow to catch up in terms of the credit he's getting for the Celtics success here. More player love in this survey, I feel like, than love for Joe, though certainly more than a year ago.
Yeah, but I would say if I'm Tatum, and I know Joe has been reveling in like all the things that have conspired against Jayson Tatum, not the lack of Team USA playing time and all the conversation about where he stands. I would be the first one to march in there and be like, "Hey, Joe, rough off season. Guys don't think you're as good as of a coach," and let Joe have a little motivation too. So, like I said, so the NBA has given Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum a whole bunch of motivation to want to repeat as champions. And now, I don't think Joe's going to obsess about how GMs are voting, but everybody finds motivation somewhere. So I kind of love the idea of Joe seeing these results and someone asking him, how will you respond?
Well, ton of great events coming up this week in sports. Celtics going to play some preseason games this weekend. Some good chance to get into the Garden and see them before the year gets going at a great price. And Game Time has your tickets. Go to the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase over there. Terms apply, all in pricing, so you know what you're paying. Perspective of your seats, panoramic view, love that. My favorite feature over there, as well as flash and zone deals all the time. So go to Game Time app. Again, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Before we get you out of here, Chris, some of your thoughts. I don't know if you got to read Himmelsbach on the sale. And this, of course, is coming by the end of the year here. Not a ton of revelations here. I do think my big takeaways were that there's not going to be any special priority for Steve Pagluca to take over the team. Wyc, not super in depth about maybe staying on in some role while this transition period goes on. Said he hopes to, but that's going to be something that works out here. And it looks like they're getting out the book in terms of, having the team actually go out to some buyers now over the next couple of months. I think the plan was for it to change hands, at least the 51% there by the end of the year. So, where do things stand here? What questions do you still have? What kind of perspective do you have on this as the team prepares to go to a new owner, which I think we still haven't made enough of a big deal about?
Yeah, I think in a year where the roster didn't change a whole lot, where it's pretty clear there's a singular focus, this is the one thing that will sort of hover and linger. And even though everyone over there can say business as usual, we're focused on all the right things, and I do believe that's true, it's undeniable that when the ownership changes, things invariably could change. And so it's something you just got to watch. I think if you're a Celtic fan, you're just hopeful it's the smoothest ride possible. I do think that that if it does happen during the course of this season, the new owner will probably be alert to that. You don't want to step on any toes. That your first impression isn't to sort of derail this thing. So I don't think there'll be a whole lot of immediate changes. But it was a great interview, but I do think it's sort of only hammered home a few things that I thought is that, it's going to go to the highest bidder. And so you just kind of brace yourself for that. I do hope that that Steve Pagliuca is in as part of that and can put together a group, and we'll see where that lands, because that would be probably, I think, for players and coaches and everyone in that organization, the smoothest sort of transition with someone that's been around for everything. But again, it's business, and I think we kind of always known that it's going to probably go to the highest bidder, and so we'll see how that all plays out. And I just hope it doesn't become any sort of a distraction along the way. And I think everyone's kind of alert to that. The other thing I would say is, like, I just get the sense, like, Wyc was obviously on this trip and he's been around at practice. I think we saw him one of those early practices over there talking with Joe Mazzulla, and I think he's just kind of savoring every moment too, because it's been quite a ride, and things are going to be at least a little bit different, obviously, going out. And I think he's hopeful to be here to the finish line of maybe another title, but sales get a little weird along the way, and so you got to savor every second of it. And it has made me sort of sit back. I keep saying this, like, it's easy when we obsess about owners in this city a lot to sort of step back and remember, like, they did a really good job here in how they ran this thing, and in just from the ground level of installing the right people in places, in spending when it was necessary, and to chase a title, and they felt like there was a real chance, and they've been rewarded with 2 titles, but we'll see if they can get a third here, even if this will sort of just, again, like you said, I don't know, we haven't made a big deal about it because we haven't started hearing names of prospective bidders, and once that starts happening, then it's going to overshadow some of the maybe doldrums of the start of the year. Once we get past the ring night and banner raising, there'll be a lot more chat on our podcast about exactly how this thing is going to play out.
Yeah, and you wonder, is it deepest pockets? Is that what you want? Is it the continuity with Pagliuca? Like, how do you weigh those two things? Then, of course, you have expansion as well. So, are people eyeing those teams as much as they are the Celtics right now? Those are the questions I have. And, of course, this $500 million that's got to be paid out next year, and whoever's coming in has to embrace that. And I think that's the biggest thing by far. And that's probably not maybe all people should care about, but a big deal is, can they keep this roster together beyond this year?
One day at a time, Bobby. One day at a time. One season at a time. We'll cross that bridge when we got to get there next year. Just like I said, you got to focus on the now. You got a great opportunity, great chance to enter a different category of champion. And I think, like, literally, I do think they've done a good job of keeping that focus. But we'll see if it gets a little bit more difficult once this process really gains some steam.
He's Chris Forsberg. Of course, hear him on all the Celtics coverage starting again this weekend. Sixers on Saturday, Raptors on Sunday, a preseason back-to-back. You got the podcast rolling as well, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm back at it today, so come on, hang out. After you listen to this one, go slam the play button on that one.
All right. Thanks again, Chris. Hopefully you're back to 100% following the trip there, and looking forward to this year.
Thank you, Bobby. I'll see you soon.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal.
Forfeit's out. I think it's an auction.
That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.